What is up, everyone? Welcome back to MythVision Podcast. I'm Derek. I want to say up front, I had to order a new computer. This computer is causing my audio to glitch. It's been doing it forever. I've been using my wife's laptop. She has to do her taxes, or our taxes. She's the she knows how to do them. So she's doing taxes on the laptop. Please forgive the voice. I know it's going to pop. And if you can look past that, in my divine nature, as you saw in the thumbnail, I will be willing to forgive you. Okay? I could not help but laugh my ass off about what happened recently with Donald Trump posting this clip or posting this image. We're going to get into this. We're going to get into this because it's much deeper. And this is not a look, I'm not trying to make a political video. So everybody knows this is just a factual observation about humans, mostly men. I'd say almost certainly men, and deifying throughout history. We're going to go through how to make gods, how gods were made, and some history behind it and the psychology behind it. Like the video, share the video if you want to be saved by the true salvation. You know what I'm saying? Good to see everyone. Look, we're going to laugh. We're going to have some fun today because this was wild. I was really blown away. Really, really blown away. You better lay off the Pope with hubris like that. He may need Leo the 14th. Good to see everyone here. Stefan, good to see you here. And with the super chat already, Stefan says, I agree. It is very simple, easy, and legal. Thank you, MVP, Being Big D, Child of House Lambert, Shepherd of Lion Pride. Be it and get it done. Will do, Stefan. Everybody hit the like button. Let's get this video get some attention here. WT, I think I don't know if that's Wet Nurse Knows, not sure, but thank you for becoming a member of the channel. Really appreciate that. Everybody who becomes a member. Also, Pasadena 17 became a member. We really appreciate that as well. Means a bunch to have people support what we're doing. Getting down here to some of you commenters. Let me see. You have another live you have to watch. You know, the lives are recorded. So if you feel like you want to interact with me along the way, you can. If you feel like interacting with someone else, you can always watch it later if necessary. Great day of Mars to all. Good to see you, Emery, Baron, David. Much preferred Derek Jesus to the orange one. Oh, this is live. Nice. Explain the strange historical things to my sponge-like brain. Yeah, you know, something came to mind right away. And I knew. I was like, I have to do a video on this. And you know, my channel is more about history, mythology, ancient religion. But when you go back in time, politics and religion were not separated. They were one and the same. And I can't help but feel like that's happening right now in the United States where I live. So I want to go through a little history with you and talk about this and laugh with you a little bit about, you know, what just happened. But even just to get into some serious history, to talk about what's been going on in history, to understand how humans were made into gods. So I really appreciate you tuning in and hanging out with me. We're going to get started in just a second. Bear with me. Jay Clark in the house, the Mormon atheist. Good to see you. Exit Music in the house. Yeah, dude, the opposite. Christians are losing their minds on Trump right now. I'm talking about the more fundamentalist kinds, right? Oh, this is blasphemy. And it's like, so I did a funny little runoff with my thumbnail, which everyone I think saw when you clicked this video. I wasn't kind of expecting it. Yep. Cheers, folks. Jay Clark, Maria in the house. Good to see you. Blue, the edit of the original picture circulating on Reddit are pretty funny. Yes. Being driven by the madmen. Welcome, Ali. Good to see you. All right, check it out. We're going to get into this. I just wanted to give at least the people who want to come hang out a chance to tune in. And I put together a little something so I don't lose track of where I'm at. And it's going to be how. Oh, let's stop sharing that for a second and just get back to this. How to become a god. It's easier than you think. So I'm going to have to try and multitask here because I got slides in StreamYard. I've got other things off StreamYard that I have to do. Let's see what happens if I hit over. Okay. Here we are, right? Everybody saw this image? Look at that image. Really, really look at that image, right? This is right here, a Red Cross worker in the middle. That guy in the middle, that's a Red Cross worker right there, if I've ever seen one. You know what I mean? Let's pause for a second and actually go to the video footage because this is hilarious. Actually, more than the footage, we need to look at the actual original video image. So this is the image on the right, okay? If you look carefully at that image, you're going to see a lot of details on there that are clearly religious symbology, okay? He is Jesus Christ in the middle, rocking that red flannel, you know what I'm saying? He's got the angels in the heavens behind him. He's the biggest on the screen. We'll get into some of the ancient images, art of the ancient world to show you how some of the kings depicted themselves when they were gods, by the way. And all of the other humans are smaller. They look up to him, okay? You have all of the symbology there that is perfect for a mythos under a particular group of people who might be drawn to this kind of imagery. You would think, maybe he thought this was like good. I mean, I do think there are some supporters who literally, this guy could do anything. He could do anything. And they would likely find a way to somehow make it good or support it or defend it. Okay. That's apologetics for you, ladies and gentlemen. That's apologetics. I'm not here to get into the weeds of policies or anything like that. This is cult of personality 101. There's just no way to get around what's going on here. We're going to quote some scholarship here in just a moment. I mean, specialist on this issue, but a lot of Christians are losing their mind. The only reason is because he's depicting their Lord and Savior. Okay. Like if this guy, if he was wearing a turban or something, right? Like acting like he was Muhammad holding a sword or something. And he was saying, I'm going into Iran and I'm going to, like, Christians would probably laugh at this and be like, oh yeah, you know, but like, no, it's their guy, right? It's their guy. And it's not okay. And some think it's funny, but what's funnier is when we play the actual clip. When we play the clip of him being confronted, here's what he has to say.
Mr. President, did you post that picture of yourself depicted as Jesus Christ?
Well, it wasn't depicted. It was me. I did post it, and I thought it was me as the doctor. And
hold on. It was him as a doctor. That's a doctor over there on the right.
It had to do with Red Cross. There's a Red Cross worker there, which we support. And only the fake news could come up with that one. So.
Don't you love it? The Red Cross on the right, ladies and gentlemen. He's got the Red Cross hanging out with him. You know what I'm saying? He's the doctor in the middle. He's just, rocking the Red Cross, doing his thing. Fascinating to watch in real time.
I just heard about it, and I said, how did they come up with that?
Hold on. How did they come up with the fact that he's Jesus Christ? I mean, everyone is an idiot if they look at this image and think that he's Jesus in this image with angels behind him and the heavens opening up, right? And clearly the glowing bright light from his hands, like he's laying his hands upon someone to heal him, right? Duh.
It's supposed to be me as a doctor making people better. And I do make people better. I make people a lot better. As an example, the 11th.
Hold on. Enough of that, okay? I just had to give you that. Now let me show you something here. This cracks me up. All right. Let's do a little side by side. I can't help it. All right. So he just got done talking about being a doctor. All right. We got him here looking like a doctor. Here's a doctor, Red Cross doctor. Okay. Come on, man. Even the vice president doesn't agree with him. The vice president's like, nah, I think he was just being funny, like just doing a humorous thing. And it's like, really? Okay. So I wanted to show you a few of these things before we actually get into how to become a god, because anybody can do it. All right, let's go back to the presentation slides that I have. I'm going to remove that. Okay, here we go. Now, all right. You look at the image, right? We all saw it. The divine light behind the head, the healing hands glowing with power, the adoring crowd gazing upward, the military presence, the national symbols. Every single element in this image follows a formula that is over 5,000 years old. Tonight, I'm going to walk you through that formula, step by step, culture by culture, from the oldest civilization we know of, all the way to what's happening right now, as you can see on the screen. And by the end, you're going to spot it everywhere, anywhere you might recognize this, because this isn't ancient history. This is a living, breathing pattern that humans keep on doing, ladies and gentlemen. They keep repeating it, and most people have no idea that they're participating in it. And here's something that might stop you cold, right? This is a map of the exact land that the first king we have in Mesopotamia that claimed to become a god in his life. Most kings, by the way, after they died. So here we are. The very first Mesopotamian human being who declared himself a living god, not after death, but while still alive, ruled in a place called Akkad. Akkad is in modern Iraq, right there next to Iran. Same region, though, okay? Right now, as we speak, the largest American military buildup in the Middle East since 2003's invasion of Iraq is underway in that same region. U.S. forces are conducting operations in Iraq, Iran, and Syria, the ancient lands of Mesopotamia, where the recipe we're going to talk about tonight was invented. The man whose supporters are generating AI images of him as a divine healer is waging war in the exact land where human self-deification was born over 4,000 years ago. I'm not saying that means anything mystical. I'm saying the geography is the same, the pattern is the same, and the human impulse is the same. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And tonight you're going to hear the rhyme, okay? It's not identical. That's what I mean by repeat. It does repeat in a sense. But before we go any further, let me be clear about what this stream is not, okay? Most people need to understand, all right? Not every admired leader is a cult leader. Not every religion is a personality cult. Not every sacred symbol is authoritarianism in disguise. There are genuine heroes, genuine spiritual experiences people have, and genuine leaders who inspire people without manipulating them. What I'm interested in tonight is the machinery, the specific set of tools that get used across cultures and centuries to elevate a human being to divine status. Once you see the machinery, you can decide for yourself when it's being used honestly and when it's being used to control people. That's all I'm asking you to do tonight. Learn to see the machinery. Before we get to the case studies, we need to understand why this happens. This isn't just history. There's real science behind why humans keep turning other humans into gods, okay? Max Weber, I believe you pronounce it Weber, the father of charisma theory. The sociologist Max Weber, writing in the early 20th century, identified 3 types of authority that humans recognize. Traditional authority, we do it because we've always done it. Kings, tribal elders, inherited power. Rational legal authority, we do it because the rules say so. Constitutions, bureaucracies, elected officials. And then there's charismatic authority. We do it because this person is extraordinary. Weber defined charismatic authority as, and I'm quoting him, a certain quality of an individual personality by virtue of which he is set apart from ordinary men and treated as endowed with supernatural, superhuman, or at least specifically exceptional powers or qualities. These are not accessible to the ordinary person, but are regarded as of divine origin or as exemplary. And on the basis of them, the individual concerned is treated as a leader. That's the clinical definition of what we're talking about tonight. A person gets treated as though they have divine or supernatural qualities. Weber said this happens in every culture, in every era. It's not a bug in human psychology. It is a feature. All right, now we're going to move to our next slide. Sigmund Freud. Everybody knows a little bit about this guy or has heard him in passing. Freud tackled this in his 1921 book, Group Psychology and the Analysis of the Ego. He argued that in group settings, followers replace their own ego ideal, their internal standard of who they want to be, with the leader. The leader becomes the embodiment of everything the follower wishes they were. Once that substitution happens, criticism of the leader feels like an attack on the follower's own identity. Cult mentality. This is why followers of charismatic leaders react to criticism not with rational counter arguments, but with emotional defensiveness. You're not attacking their leader, you're attacking them. The halo effect is the next thing. So cognitive psychologists have identified something called the halo effect. I don't think it's the next one, is it? No. Is it? No. Okay. So the halo effect, something they identified as the halo effect. When we perceive one positive quality in a human or in a person, confidence, physical attractiveness, military success, we automatically attribute other positive qualities to them. They must also be honest. They must also be intelligent. They must also be chosen by God. One impressive trait bleeds into everything else. This is how military victory leads to divine status. Alexander conquers the known world, and people conclude he must be the son of Zeus, because how else could a mortal do what he did? And then there's terror management theory. Psychologist Sheldon Solomon, Jeff Greenberg, and I'm going to butcher this, Tom Pyszczynski, I'm not sure if it's Pyszczynski, developed terror management theory based on the work of Ernest Becker. The core idea: humans are the only animals aware of their own mortality. And this awareness creates a constant low-level existential terror. We manage this terror by attaching ourselves to things that feel bigger than death: cultural worldviews, religious systems, and above all, leaders who seem to transcend ordinary human limitations. A leader who survives an assassination attempt, who defies death, who seems unkillable, that leader becomes a vessel for our deepest psychological need, the need to believe that death can be defeated. This is not a modern phenomenon. It's the engine that drives every deification story we're about to look at. Okay, next slide. Here we are. So, this is Hoffer's book. And if you don't know, the lady on the right is Kara Cooney. Okay, she's an Egyptologist. I have her book over here. I recommend Good King. She's got several. But in this book, she ties the Pharaohs to Donald Trump in an interesting way. Let's continue. In 1951, longshoreman philosopher Eric Hoffer published The True Believer, Thoughts on the Nature of Mass Movements, as you can see on the left of this slide. His key insight: mass movements don't attract people who are happy with their lives. They attract people who are frustrated, who feel their individual lives are meaningless, and who want to lose themselves in something larger. The movement gives them purpose. The leader gives them a God. Hoffer wrote, quote, "The effectiveness of a doctrine does not come from its meaning, but from its certitude. No doctrine, however profound and sublime, will be effective unless it is presented as the embodiment of the one and only truth." That's the recipe in one sentence. It doesn't matter what you believe. It matters that you believe it with absolute certainty, and that there is a person who embodies that certainty. Identity fusion. Why criticism of the leader feels like a personal attack. So this is where it gets really interesting. Researchers at Yale published a study in 2019 on something called identity fusion, when a person's individual identity becomes fused with a political leader. When they stop seeing any separation between who they are and who the leader is, something dangerous happens. Criticism of the leader doesn't just feel wrong. It feels like a threat to the self. An attack on the leader is an attack on you. The Yale research found that people who are identity fused with a political leader are significantly more likely to endorse extreme positions or even violence on that leader's behalf. Not because they're stupid, not because they're evil, because psychologically defending the leader is defending themselves. There's no longer a boundary between the two. Think about it. Think about that in the context of everything we're about to see tonight. When Augustus's funeral was held and a senator swore he saw the emperor's soul ascending, was the senator lying? Or had his identity become so fused with the emperor that he genuinely believed what he saw? Or maybe he made it up. Who knows, right? Like maybe he's so hooked into this person that he's making up this shit and willing to swear in an oath in court that he saw it. I don't know. I don't have a time machine. But when followers, for example, of the guru sage Osho committed bioterrorism in Oregon, were they deranged? Or had their identities fused so completely with the guru that his attempts literally became interests? Okay? This research gives us a mechanism for how the receipt actually works inside the human brain. Now, Janja Lalich, I'm probably butchering this. So why smart people join cults? One of the most common reactions people have when they see cult dynamics is, I would never fall for that. Sociologist Janja Lalich, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this name right, but forgive me if I butchered it. They spent years studying why that reaction is wrong. In her book, Bounded Choice, True Believers in Charismatic Cults, she demonstrates that it's not the weak-minded or the uneducated who join high control groups. It's often intelligent, idealistic, searching people who want to make the world better, who want something to believe in. Lalich argues that cults create what she calls a bounded choice, a system where every available option leads back to obedience. The follower isn't choosing freely, but they feel like they are because every alternative has been closed off. The information is controlled. The social environment is controlled. The emotional consequences of doubt are controlled. Within that bounded system, staying loyal isn't irrational. It's the only option that doesn't result in losing everything: your community, your purpose, your identity. This matters for tonight because it explains why we see the same pattern repeated by people across every era and every intelligence level. Pharaohs, Roman senators, early Christians, modern political movements. The people inside the system are not fools. They are operating within a bounded choice that the machinery of deification has constructed around them. Then we have Karakuni, which I think is a very important scholar. We saw her here. All right. I believe we're going to get to her in just a moment too in more depth. But Egyptologist Karakuni brings a different lens in The Good Kings, as I showed the book before for those who are just tuning in. Her insight isn't psychological, it's structural. She argues that the Egyptian divine kingship system worked because it solved a real problem. People are terrified of chaos, and a divine king promises cosmic order. The propaganda wasn't just, this man is great. It was, if you don't support this man, the world will fall apart. That's a much harder pitch to refuse. And by the way, I am making sure I have my notes here. I don't want to lose this. But when I went down to, this was years ago, when I went down to register to vote here in Florida since we moved here, I would hear people tell me, this is the most important vote of all votes. And if you don't vote this vote, you can say goodbye to America. This vote demands, and that specifically for Donald Trump. And I'm just letting you know, I have heard this countless times, that if you do not do this, it will be destroyed. It will all fall apart. That is the story that is being told, and the people who are saying it are victims of the machine that's selling them this as well. And at the end of the day, they're truly believing that that's the case. It's not that they're lying. that just maybe can't see the bigger picture or aren't really aware of the nuance and understanding the other side. Cooney connects this directly to modern politics in her book, The Good Kings. All right. She argues that authoritarian leaders don't succeed because they brainwash people. They succeed because they offer what people already want: a strong figure who will hold back the chaos. The divine king is a psychological need disguised as a political system. Egypt perfected the formula. We're still using it. I'll get deeper into her work when we hit Egypt, the Egyptian case study. All right, so the recipe, 7 ingredients. Write them down and you'll know when you see it cooking, okay? Every deification across 5,000 years uses some combination of these ingredients. The proportions vary. The vocabulary changes. The structure is always the same. So ingredient 1, extraordinary origin. The person can't come from nowhere. They need a divine parent, a miraculous birth, a prophecy, a sign in the heavens. This separates them from ordinary humanity before they do anything. Then you have 2, superhuman deeds. There's healings, impossible military victories, wisdom beyond mortals, control over nature. The deeds prove the origin story wasn't a lie. Maybe they've survived assassinations. The list can go on and on. Ingredient 3, a unique revelation with the divine. They speak to gods, receive visions, channel divine power, or are a god walking among mortals. They are the bridge between heaven and earth. Without them, ordinary people can't reach the gods. Ingredient 4, a dramatic death or departure. They don't die like everyone else. They ascend. They're taken up. They sacrifice themselves. They vanish. The exit has to match the entrance. Ingredient 5, post-mortem validation. Appearances after death. Signs at the moment of death. Witnesses who testify. The empty tomb. Missing body. This confirms everything the origin story promises. Ingredient 6, institutional enforcement. Someone with power, priests, a senate, a political party, a church council, promotes and protects the narrative. They build temples, mint coins, write scriptures, create creeds, and punish dissenters. Ingredient 7, visual propaganda. Images, statues, coins, icons, and now AI-generated portraits. Light behind the head, elevated position, adoring crowds below, symbols of cosmic authority. This visual language has been remarkably consistent for 5,000 years. Sorry that Gilgamesh is squished. It deformed him a bit there when we put this into the slide. The oldest known case in Mesopotamia that we have, Gilgamesh, was probably a real king of Uruk in southern Mesopotamia. Historical evidence includes inscriptions crediting him with the building of Great Walls of Uruk and his listing in the Sumerian king list around 2100 BCE. The primary source of the Epic of Gilgamesh in Tablet 1 says, quote, supreme over other kings, lordly in appearance. He is the hero, born of Uruk, the goring wild bull. He walks out in front, the leader, and walks at the rear. Trusted by his companions, mighty net, protector of his people, raging flood wave who destroys even walls of stone. 2/3 of him is God. 1/3 of him is human. Propaganda, ladies and gentlemen, in legend, in mythology. Within a few centuries of his death, temples were built to him. Prayers addressed to him as judge of the dead in the underworld. Later, kings claimed him as a brother or ancestor to legitimize their own rule. The recipe, a real king who built real walls, became, through accumulated legend, a 2/3 divine being with temples and a cult. The historical man disappeared. The god remained. All right, now this one's a fun one. Naram Sin's Victory Stele, grandson of Sargon the Great, the first ruler we know of who was deified during his own lifetime. And real quick, if you just look at the image on this this PowerPoint, he's larger than all other humans, including his own army. And of course, he's defeating the itty bitty enemies. That artistic depiction is showing the magnitude of his character, of his deification, how much greater he is to everyone around him. might I remind you, just even this AI art, which maybe he didn't think this technical about it, but this AI art on the right, look how big he is compared to the people beneath him looking up to him in admiration. You can see the size, the difference is massive there. Now, I think we might automatically do that when we create art of people that we think of as very important figures, but that is a very interesting observation when you get into ancient art like this. So after surviving a massive rebellion that nearly destroyed his empire, Naram Sin here, Naram Sin added the cuneiform divine determinative, the sign for God. It's a dinger before his own name on official inscriptions. His victory stele, now in the Louvre, I'm not sure how I pronounce that, Louvre, the museum, shows him wearing the horned helmet of the god. So if I could zoom into that, you'd be able to see he's rocking a helmet that has horns, which is a symbol of deification. All right. Towering over his shoulders, ascending a mountain toward divine stars. And if you look at the stele, of course, the elevated position, the divine headgear, the smaller figures looking up at him, cosmic symbols above. So you can see the solar, the celestial symbols that are at the top of this stele. And of course, look at the actual image again of this magnitude of Donald Trump being larger than life, larger than the rest of the humans, and this hero divine type figure. All right. It's, to me, look, this would be an awesome thing just to study, even if Donald Trump himself didn't post this image, okay? Just to show his own followers are viewing him this way. The fact that he posted it, then wants to bullshit people and tell us that, well, I was just doing a Red Cross thing. I thought I was a doctor. That's silly, okay? I do think he has that kind of personality that he thinks more of himself. You know what I mean? He thinks himself to be that, okay? Many kings have in the ancient world, and many modern ones as well. Not too long ago, even contemporary ones. North Korea still has this deification kind of process, but we'll get into that in just a bit. All right, so the visual grammar is identical across about 4,200 years. So we have this backlash that happens, like we're seeing right now in the media from Christians and others, of him deifying himself, Donald Trump. Naram Sin self-deified. But there was backlash. The curse of Agade, a god, I'm not sure how you pronounce this word, Agade, and the price of self-deification. So here's what happens. And this might be the most important part of tonight's stream, okay? After Naram Sin's reign, the Akkadian Empire collapsed. The Gutians, G-U-T-I-A-N-S, Gutians, invaded from the mountains. Everything fell apart. And a devastating literary text was composed afterward called The Curse of Agade. This poem, written during the Ur III period, roughly a century later, blames the entire catastrophe on Naram Sin's hubris, specifically his desecration of Enlil's temple at Nippur. The gods responded to his arrogance by unleashing the Gutians as divine punishment. The empire that produced the first self-deified king was destroyed because its king reached too high. So the king before him, after he died, people venerated him. He became a god. This guy did it during his lifetime, and then a serious catastrophe happened where outside tribes come in and destroy them. And what are the odds? You know, it's like the higher you are, the harder you fall. Kind of the bigger you are, the harder you fall. He has his self-deification. And next thing you know, catastrophe hits. So poems are now written about this guy who's breaking the tradition. So that primary source, by the way, is from 2100 BCE. And to paraphrase it, the poem describes pretty much how Naram Sin, frustrated that the gods were not responding to his prayers, attacked the temple of Enlil in Nippur, smashing its gates with axes and looting its treasures. In response, Enlil summoned the Gutians from the mountains like a great swarm of locusts to destroy the Akkadian Empire. The city of Agade was cursed so that it would never be inhabited again. This is the first anti-deification polemic in human history. The message: when a king declares himself a god, the real gods destroy him. Now, here's where it gets really interesting for anyone who grew up with the Bible. All right. The hubris narrative. A human reaches for divine status and gets catastrophically punished. Becomes one of the most powerful literary templates in the ancient Near East. And it shows up directly in the Hebrew Bible. Isaiah 14, 12 through 13, the Lucifer passage, everybody knows this one. Quote, how you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn, Lucifer. You said in your heart, I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will make myself like the Most High, but you are brought down to the realm of the dead, to the depths of the pit. Most critical scholars agree this was originally written about a Babylonian or Assyrian king, not a supernatural devil. The imagery of a human ruler who declares himself divine and gets cast down follows the same template as the curse of Agag. A human reaches for godhood and gets destroyed for it. The Lucifer reading came centuries later when Christians reinterpreted it as Satan's fall. But the original context, it's political hubris, a king who thought he was a god. That's the context. Then we have the almost, I guarantee you this one's more popular, Genesis 3:5, the serpent's temptation. For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be open and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. The core temptation in Eden is the desire to transcend human limitations and become divine. You will be like God is the oldest temptation in the story. And it maps directly onto the deification impulse we're tracking tonight. The punishment, expulsion, suffering, death, reach for divine status. If you're a human reaching for divine status, get catastrophically punished. Same pattern, same region, same tradition. And if you look at the Philippians 2 hymn, one might notice something here, and that James Tabor has recognized this. When I've talked to Dr. Tabor, he believes that Philippians 2's hymn is actually kind of echoing the Adamic hymn, Adam, where he says Adam thought it was necessary to reach out his hand to reach for divine, nature. But according to the Philippians hymn, Jesus thought it, humble himself to become a servant to all men. And for that humble slave mentality, he now gets deified. So he gets what he didn't ask for. But if you try to get it, then you're going to lose it. It's kind of that kind of paradox idea philosophically. So I think that's powerful. And here's the irony that should hit the audience, for example, that's listening tonight and whoever's watching this later, right between those eyeballs, the people who are most enthusiastic about biblical warnings about human hubris, you shall have no other gods before me, the fall of Lucifer, the sin of Eden, are sometimes the very same people creating AI images of a political leader as Jesus, Donald Trump. The very tradition that warns most loudly against human deification is being used to deify a human. And it's happening in connection with a military conflict in the very same land where the first self-deified king brought ruin on his own empire. The recipe and the warning against the recipe are both over 4,000 years old. And we're living through both of them right now in 2026. Now we're at Sargon. Love this story. The humble origin story. 2,334 BCE. Sargon's birth legend, preserved on cuneiform tablets, goes like this. And this is just a brief spot that I think is necessary. Quote, my mother was a high priestess. My father I knew not. My mother, the high priestess, conceived me in secret. She bore me. She set me in a basket of rushes with bitumen. She sealed my lid. She cast me into the river, which rose not over me. A child of mysterious divine origin, placed in a basket on a river, rescued and raised to become the greatest king the world had ever seen. The story was written down centuries after Sargon's death. Now compare Moses in Exodus 2, placed in a basket of bulrushes, set on the river, found and raised to become a great leader. Romulus and Remus, exposed as infants, rescued by a she-wolf, founded in Rome, of course. The chosen child of destiny narrative is the oldest ingredient in the recipe, and it's found in Persia. There's all sorts of different stories like this. It's in India. I mean, it's all over the world, from Greece, you name it, okay? Pharaoh. Pharaohs of Egypt. Divinity as a job description. This is 3100 BCE. I want you to think about this. This is over 5,000 years ago. This is the oldest among all the examples we have of this example of this deification recipe. So in Egypt, the Pharaoh didn't become a god. The Pharaoh was a god. The office itself was divine. When a new Pharaoh took the throne, he became the living incarnation of Horus. When he died, he became Osiris. Here's a primary source from 2350 BCE. So that is about, let's see, 4,003 to 400 years ago. O king, you have not departed dead. You have departed alive. Sit upon the throne of Osiris with your scepter in your hand, that you may give orders to the living. This wasn't metaphorical. The entire economy, the entire social order, the entire agricultural calendar of Egypt depended on Pharaoh's divine status. The Nile flooded because the Pharaoh maintained cosmic order. Ma'at, that's their cosmic. Well, Ma'at is also the place people can go to when you die, but that is the cosmic order he's trying to maintain. If the Pharaoh's divinity was questioned, the cosmic order was threatened. Everyone's crops would fail. Everyone could die. So Egypt shows what happens when deification becomes systematic. It's not about one person. It's a system that makes whoever sits on the throne divine. The office creates the god, not the other way around. So now Karakuni, these images smidged when I put them into this PowerPoint. Karakuni on the top there in her book, The Good Kings, on the bottom. Egyptologist we brought up earlier tackles this head on in her book, The Good Kings, Absolute Power in Ancient Egypt and the Modern World. She published it in 2021. Her argument is that the Egyptian system wasn't just ancient history. It was a propaganda blueprint that still operates today. She examines 5 pharaohs, Khufu, Senwosret, I'm probably butchering that, Senwosret III, Akhenaten, Ramesses II, and Taharqa, and shows how each one used the machinery of divine kingship to consolidate power and how each one required the population to buy into the myth in order for the system to function. Kuni's key point, and this is the critical one for tonight's show, is that the Egyptian system worked not because people were stupid, but because the propaganda was genuinely sophisticated. It tied the king's power to cosmic stability, agricultural success, and national security. The pharaoh maintained Ma'at, cosmic order. If the pharaoh was strong, the Nile flooded on schedule. The crops grew, enemies were defeated, and the gods were pleased. If the pharaoh was weak or challenged, chaos could follow. People accepted divine kingship because the alternative felt like the end of the world. She draws explicit parallels to modern authoritarian leaders. Her argument is that we keep falling for the same formula because the underlying psychology hasn't changed. We want to believe that a strong leader can hold back chaos. We want someone who seems bigger than human to stand between us and the things we're afraid of. The Egyptians built pyramids to prove their kings were gods. We build media empires, rally stages, and some of us build AI-generated images of our king, and he posts them on Twitter. Self-deification. Kuni also makes a point that that's directly relevant to what we're talking about tonight. Egyptian kings who were objectively terrible, who overtaxed their people, lost wars, or were personally cruel, still received divine honors because the system demanded it. The office was sacred regardless of who occupied it. The individual didn't make the office divine. The office made the individual divine. Once the system is in place, it runs on autopilot. It doesn't need the person to be exceptional. It just needs the person to sit in the chair. She also highlights the narcissism built into the system. These kings commissioned colossal statues of themselves, had their names carved on every available surface. Ramesses II literally carved his name over other pharaohs' monuments, and demanded that their achievements be remembered forever. The scale of self-promotion was staggering, and the population funded it, built it, and believed in it. because the alternative to the population, to the system that we've been living in, was unthinkable. If you want one book that connects ancient divine kingship to modern strongman politics, her book right here, The Divine King, The Good Kings, let me get myself full screen here, is one worth reading. Absolute Power in Ancient Egypt and the Modern World. Highly recommend you get this book. All right. She goes into this. So an interesting little wrinkle into this is Imhotep, originally a real human, the architect who designed the first pyramid for Pharaoh Djoser, Djoser, around 2650 BCE. He was also a physician. After his death, his reputation grew for roughly 2,000 years. By the late period, he was worshipped as a full god of medicine. The Greeks identified him with their healing god Asclepius. Temples were built. Pilgrims came seeking cures. A real architect became a healing god through nothing more than the slow accumulation of legend. Now, everybody knows Alexander the Great, conquering your way to godhood, 356 to 323 BCE. Here's a primary source from Plutarch. He says, when Alexander arrived at the oracle of Siwa, the prophet of Ammon gave him salvation from the god as from a father. Interesting. After the oracle at Siwa greeted him as the son of Ammon Zeus, Alexander increasingly presented himself as divine. He demanded proskynesis, prostration, ladies and gentlemen, from his followers, a gesture reserved for gods and Persian kings. He wanted yes men, people who are going to be on his side, support whatever he tells them to do. Does that sound familiar? Now, the other primary source, Arian, the Anabasis source, says that Alexander should have been not altogether human, as indicated by the fact that he was born on the very night the temple of Artemis at Ephesus was burned, and that no one was able to extinguish the fire because all the priests were attending Alexander's birth. The supernatural birth narrative was retrofitted after his conquests made him seem superhuman. His achievements came first. The divine origin story was constructed afterward to explain them. That's how the recipe usually works in practice. When he died at 32 years of age, his body was hijacked by Ptolemy and taken to Alexandria, where it became the centerpiece of divine cult that lasted for centuries. Romulus, the Roman resurrection template. The tradition says it spans back to 750 BCE. This one is critical because the structural parallel to Christian resurrection accounts is very close. Primary source from Livy. After performing these immortal deeds, while Romulus was holding an assembly of the people near the Goat's Marsh, a storm suddenly arose with loud claps of thunder and enveloped the king in so dense a cloud that he was completely hidden from the sight of the assembly. From that moment, Romulus was no longer on Earth. Romulus disappears, ladies and gentlemen. Then a single eyewitness, a senator named Julius Proculus, comes forward. Proculus Julius declared that Romulus had descended from heaven and appeared to him. Go, said Romulus, and tell the Romans that it is the will of heaven that my Rome should be the capital of the world. Let them practice the art of war. Let them know and let them hand down to posterity that no human power can resist Roman arms. Having spoken these words, Romulus departed on high. A single post-mortem appearance, a single witness, a command to spread the message. The figure ascends to heaven. The community accepts the testimony and builds a divine cult around the departed leader. Romulus becomes the god Quirinius. Then we have the deification of the Caesars, Caesar Augustus, Caesar, Julius Caesar, the political deification machine, the Roman imperial cult, all of that. Rome formalized deification into a political process. The Senate voted on whether a dead emperor became a god. The word was consecratio. If the vote passed, the emperor received temples, priests, and a state cult. If the Senate hated you, you got damnatio memoriae. So you're damned. You're going to hell, dude. You're not going to have a good afterlife. Your name chiseled off every monument. Divinity was granted and revoked by committee. A primary source is Suetonius' Life of Julius Caesar. He was numbered among the gods, not only by decree, but also in the conviction of the common people. For at the first games given in his honor by his successor Augustus, a comet shone for 7 successive days, rising about the 11th hour, and was believed to be the soul of Caesar, who had been taken to heaven. A comet appears. Augustus declares it's Caesar's soul ascending. The Senate votes him divine. Divus Ilius. A temple is built where his body was cremated. And now Augustus can call him Divi Filius, son of the divine one, literally son of God. Suetonius in Life of Augustus says, an ex-praetor actually declared it on oath that he had seen Augustus's spirit ascending to heaven through the flames of the pyre. A senator swears under oath that he saw Augustus's soul rising through the funeral flames, just like Proculus swore he saw Romulus ascend. The eyewitness testimony of ascension was a standard element of the Roman deification process. It wasn't spontaneous. It was part of the protocol. And if you're looking for the book on this, the freaking book is this book right here, Resurrection and Reception in Early Christianity, by none other than Dr. Richard C. Miller, who tackles this. Oh my gosh, this book is super, super good. And you know what's crazy? It's only like 200 and something pages. Is it 200 something? Man, it doesn't even break 200. It's like 180. But this is like a 600 page. It's so dense. I mean, I read books all the time. And some of these books are 500 pages and I blow through them and it's easy to read. This is deep and it's full of information. Like, really got to get it. Okay, getting back to this here. So you got a senator swears under oath, right? We did that. So you have the self-aware ones knew it. Vespasian on his deathbed says this, literally, oh dear, I think I'm becoming a god. According to Suetonius' Life of Vespasian 23. So he's dying and he's already becoming a god. He's like saying the same thing. The trope is there. The machine is there. He understood the recipe perfectly and could joke about it because he knew deification was a political act, not a supernatural event. So Antinous is the lover, if you will, of Hadrian, right? This is an extreme case. Hadrian's young lover drowned in the Nile. Hadrian was devastated. He used his imperial power to deify the boy, a teenager with no accomplishments whatsoever. Temples were built across the empire. A city was founded where he drowned. Games were held in his honor. More surviving statues of Antinous exist than of almost any other ancient figure. A teenager became a god because the most powerful man in the world loved him and had the power to make it happen. Wow. Clearly not our modern sensitivities. Then you have the Prian inscription, right? This one's going to hit different for anyone who grew up in church and hasn't heard about this. So in 9 BCE, a decree was issued this isn't 9 BCE stone inscription. This is before Jesus, all right? It was issued in the Roman province of Asia, resetting the calendar so that the new year would begin on Augustus's birthday, where we get the month of August, okay? The inscription found at Prian reads, quote, since province has ordered our life in a divine way, and since the Caesar, through his appearance, has exceeded the hopes of all former good news, surpassing not only the benefactors who came before him, but also leaving no hope that anyone in the future would surpass him. And since for the world, the birthday of the god was the beginning of his good news. The Greek word used there for good news in this inscription is literally evangelion, gospel. That is the exact same word the New Testament uses for gospel. The good news of a divine savior ruler whose birth would change the world and reset time itself. That language was being used for Augustus decades before anyone thought or wrote a gospel about Jesus. This doesn't mean the gospel writers copied the Prian inscription verbatim or even that specific thing. It means they were writing in a world where this language already existed for divine rulers. When Mark opens his gospel with the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, Son of God, his audience had heard that kind of language before. It was the language of empire. The early Christians took the empire's vocabulary and applied it to their guy instead. By the way, before we move to the next guy, that word first appears in Paul's epistles. If we take the consensus view that Paul's letters are the earliest, he's the one using it. He uses emperor languages of the emperor coming in, like meeting him in the air, that Thessalonian, we always talk about the rapture episode where they're supposed to meet him in the air and bring him in. This is like escorting the emperor into the city. That is the language that is being used by Paul when he talks about that rapture stuff. All right, next one. Here we are. Jesus, right? Everybody knows this guy. We should. So the recipe in Jewish context, first century. I don't need to belabor this one, okay? You all know the story. I just want to lay the ingredients next to what we've already seen. Extraordinary origin, virgin birth, divine father, star at birth, prophecies fulfilled, superhuman deeds, healings, exorcisms, nature miracles, raising the dead, relationship with the divine. The Father and I are one. Dramatic death, cosmic signs at crucifixion, darkness, earthquake, temple veil torn, post-mortem validation, resurrection appearances, empty tomb, ascension into heaven, institutional enforcement. Church councils decided which gospel survived. Constantine legalized and favored Christianity in 313. Theodosius made Nicene Christianity the official religion of the empire in 380 AD. The dissenters were declared heretics and their books were burned. Visual propaganda, Byzantine icons, crucifixes, cathedral mosaics, stained glass, Renaissance paintings, 2,000 years of visual reinforcement. And that's that little small image in the bottom beneath the Jesus wearing the crown of thorns. There's like a collage of different things from stained glass to mosaics to, the crucifix and all of that stuff. Here's what's interesting from my own project research. The author of Luke Acts, when describing Paul and Barnabas in Lystra, Acts 14, shows us that the author himself understood how this works. Paul heals someone, and immediately the whole town tries to sacrifice to Paul and Barnabas as Zeus and Hermes. The text acknowledges how naturally the deification impulse operates. Do a miracle, and people start building an altar. We got this modern day Benny Hinn and all of these TV gurus who have powers they can heal, and the Holy Ghost can help them do all of that. People are practically worshiping these TV pastors and preachers. The same goes for political figures. The same goes for religious figures. It's the same recipe. You know what I mean? Every ingredient that made Gilgamesh, Alexander, Caesar, and Augustus into gods is present in the Jesus tradition. The question isn't whether the recipe was used. It obviously was used. The question is whether you think this time it describes something that actually happened, or whether the pattern tells you something about how humans process extraordinary figures. I lean into the latter. I think that there's a lot of inventive nature going on by people who are writing stories about Jesus. Now we get to an interesting character that a lot of people overlook. But because of my recent interview with M. David Litwell, which launched this morning, if you watched it, you'll be a little bit aware of what's going on there. Maybe you've read some of this. From the same scholarly material I work with, M. David Litwell observes, quote, according to Acts, the Samaritans deified Simon due to his wondrous works. The Simon of Acts does not, however, deify himself, end quote. The people called Simon the great power of God. He didn't give himself the title. They gave it to him because his deeds were impressive enough that the deification impulse kicked in automatically. This pattern, where the figure doesn't claim divinity but the followers insist on it anyway, is going to come up again and again as we move forward. And it isn't just they insist, it's sometimes the people themselves claim to be God, all right? By the way, I'm not keeping an eye on the chat right now. I'm coming back, and I'm going to hit any super chats in order, all right? I'm going to hit any super chats you've sent, any of that stuff. So feel free to ask your questions, whatever. I'll get to you in just a bit. Here we go. Buddha, the Buddha. I am not a god. 5th century BCE. Siddhartha Gautama explicitly rejected divinity. When asked what he was, a god, an angel, a saint, he reportedly answered, "I am awake." And yet within centuries, he was worshipped with temples, statues, relics, pilgrimage sites, the elaborate mythological birth stories. His mother Maya conceived him miraculously. At his birth, he took 7 steps and lotus flowers bloomed beneath his feet. Earthquakes accompanied his enlightenment and his death. His relics were divided among kingdoms and enshrined in stupas. The man who said, "I am not a god," became the center of one of the world's great religious traditions, complete with every ingredient of the deification recipe. His denial didn't matter. The human need was stronger than his own words. All right, we're now at Japanese emperors. Forced undeification in 1945. We're jumping ahead. I'm skipping ahead. There's so many ancient examples. I just needed to jump, okay? Japanese emperors were considered direct descendants of the sun goddess Amaterasu for over 1,500 years. This was the theological foundation of the Japanese state. Emperor Hirohito, I probably butchered that, was worshipped as a living god through World War II. Soldiers died shouting his name. After Japan's surrender in 1945, the American occupation forced Hirohito to issue the Humanity Declaration, a public statement denying his own divinity. This is one of the only cases in history where a living god was forced to publicly undeify himself. The fact that it required a military occupation to accomplish it tells you how deeply the recipe embeds itself in a culture. Lenin, Stalin, Mao, Kim portraits. Everybody sees all 4 images. So we're going to start with Vladimir Lenin, 1870 to 1924. His embalmed body has been on public display in Red Square for over 100 years. A dedicated laboratory maintains the corpse. Lenin corners were established in Soviet homes. Small shrines with his portrait in quotes. Pioneer children swore oaths to him. The slogan, "Lenin lived, Lenin lives, Lenin will live," end quote, functioned as a creedal statement of eternal presence, built by a regime that officially declared religion to be the opium of the people. Think about that. They mock religion and then literally do religion. They do the very thing they act like is the opium of the people. Joseph Stalin, 1878 to 1953, father of nations. His image in every home, school, office, children taught to thank Stalin for their food. Songs praised him as the sun. When he died, millions wept in the streets. People were crushed to death trying to view his body. After, and I'm going to butcher this name, Khrushchev's de-Stalinization campaign, his body was removed from Red Square, the Soviet version of Damnatio Memoriae. Remember what we talked about with the Caesars? Well, they damned him, okay, afterwards. But many people continued, I'm sure, to worship him once this was over. Mao Zedong. I probably butchered that too. By the way, if anyone doesn't know, I'm not the greatest at pronouncing words sometimes, but I'm trying. The little red book functioned as scripture. Mao badges worn by nearly every Chinese citizen. Loyalty dances performed before his portrait every morning. Political enemies punished as heretics. After death, that's crazy. After death, his embalmed body placed on permanent display. An atheist regime built a religious cult in everything but name. Wild. And then you have Kim Song. I think it's Kim Tu-song. I'm not sure how you pronounce this here. North Korea, 1948 to present. They're still worshiping him today here. The most complete modern deification system. Official mythology claims miraculous births with double rainbows and new stars. Portraits in every home. Giant statues in every city. Criticism punishable by death in North Korea for 3 generations of the family. Kim Song is the eternal president. He still holds the office. His embalmed body is displayed permanently. Citizens weep before it. If you described the North Korean system to an ancient Egyptian without naming the country, they would recognize it immediately as divine kingship. Now, this case is interesting because I've watched some documentaries on these two guys. Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, later known as Osho. We've all probably come across a video or two of his. He explicitly said he was not God, but he also said things like, I am the beginning of a totally new religious consciousness. He allowed followers to call him Bhagwan, which means God. 93 Rolls Royces. 93. The guy had the nicest cars in the world. 93 of them. The daily drive-by where followers lined the road and wept. The flowing robes. Followers took new names, wore specific colors, performed his meditations. His compound in Oregon became a self-contained world. His followers committed a bioterror attack, the largest on U.S. soil before 9/11, in his name. After his death in 1990, his movement continued. His meditation resort still operates. His books sell millions. His quotes circulate on social media as spiritual wisdom. Osho shows that the modern recipe doesn't require literal deification. It requires the functional equivalent: absolute authority, a personality cult, visual iconography, an in-group that polices loyalty, and infrastructure that survives the leader's death. And then we have Jim Jones. Jones explicitly claimed to be God incarnate, not metaphorically, literally. By the way, that's what the Simonians believed about Simon Magus, which we just passed earlier. He staged fake healings during services, pulling chicken livers from congregants and claiming to remove cancerous tumors. He demanded to be called Father. He tested loyalty with rehearsals for mass suicide called White Nights. The result was Jonestown. We all have heard about this, I'm sure, in Guyana. 918 people dead. This is what happens when the recipe reaches full power with zero institutional checks. Haile Selassie, I don't know if it is Haile Selassie, deified despite his own denial. The emperor of Ethiopia was declared the returned Messiah by the Rastafari movement. Selassie was Ethiopian Orthodox and never endorsed this claim. He reportedly told a Rasta delegation that he was just a man. But his coronation titles, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Conquering Lion of the Tribe of Judah, were read as fulfillment of biblical prophecy. Even after his death, under suspicious circumstances, many Rastas refused to believe he died. Some still consider him alive or eternally present. The Osho pattern again. The figure's own denial does not stop the deification process. The need is stronger than the person's own words. So I'm not making a political argument. I'm making a pattern recognition argument. We've now seen the recipe across Mesopotamia with Gilgamesh, Naram-Sin, Sargon, Egypt with Pharaohs and Ahimotep, Greece, Alexander, Pythagoras, Heracles. I mean, this is just, there's way more in every one of these things that I'm listing, and there's way more places than I even covered. Rome, Caesar, Augustus, Vespasian, Antinous, early Christianity with Jesus and Simon Magus. By the way, we might as well add in Apollonius of Tyana, even though I didn't actually include it, because Simon Magus, or Simon, was part of the early Christian movement, which is why I didn't include. I didn't want to go exhaustive here. Buddhism, the Buddha, he didn't even say he was a god yet. They can later on they worship him as one. Japan, their emperor worship. Soviet Union, Lenin and Stalin. China with Mao. North Korea with the Kim dynasty. Modern cults, Osho, Jim Jones, Koresh. Rastafari with Haile Selassie. That's at least 12 distinct cultures across 5,000 years, all using the same basic ingredients. And this isn't just my observation. Credentialed experts in cult psychology, political psychology, and authoritarianism have been sounding this alarm with increasing urgency. Here are 4 experts you could see. Stephen Hassan. He's the one who coined, I believe, the phrase bite model. He's a licensed mental health counselor, former member of Sun Young Moon Unification Church, and one of the world's foremost experts on cult dynamics, wrote an entire book called The Cult of Trump, 2019 New York Times bestseller. Again, just to give you guys, everybody who missed the beginning, we're talking about this, okay? We're talking about this and the followers of this, all right? So Hassan developed the BITE model of cult analysis, controlled behavior, information, thought, and emotion. He applied it systematically to the Trump movement and concluded that it meets the criteria of a destructive cult. Hassan draws direct parallels between Trump and figures like Jim Jones, David Koresh, Ron Hubbard, and the Sun Myung Moon. His central argument: under the right circumstances, even sane, rational, well-adjusted people can be persuaded to believe the most outrageous ideas. The problem isn't stupidity, it's social psychology. Hassan specifically identifies these cult leader tactics at work. Grandiose claims of unique ability. I mean, let me pause right there, okay? We have to go back to this. People have to hear when he is literally denying the evidence.
Of yourself depicted as Jesus Christ.
Well, it wasn't depiction. It was me. I did post it, and I thought it was me as a doctor, and had to do with Red Cross, as a Red Cross worker there, which we support. And only the fake news could come up with that one. So I just heard about it, and I said, how did they come up with that?
Real quick, how did they come up with that? I don't know. I mean, how do you post something and not look at the image with angels and yourself as Jesus Christ healing people as a unique person? I remember watching a Joe Rogan episode a long time ago where he was laughing about 50 things Donald Trump is the best at in every way, shape, or form. Nobody loves women more than I do. No one reads the Bible more than I do. Nobody's a better leader. Nobody protects the black community more than I do. Every single thing, he is the best. That grandiose kind of cult, I'm invincible, I'm the leader of everything mentality. Well, that's where people are getting this idea from, especially when you posted it yourself and someone following you made this. And I guarantee you thousands, if not millions of people are probably going to look at this and go, yeah, you know what? He is important. Stop looking at it literally. It's just symbolic of his importance and what he's doing. Now, here's what he says after that.
It's supposed to be me as a doctor making people better. And I do make people better. I make people a lot better. As an example,
I was literally thinking about it, and I almost thought he might add in, I make people better than anyone, or I'm the best at making people better. Kind of a narcissistic answer, but I wouldn't have been shocked if he did. So we're continuing where we left off. So he has this grandiose claim, and this goes for any and everyone, any and every cult leader, any and every religious and political leader that is out there. Look for these recipes, okay? Claims of unique ability, sowing confusion so followers can't trust outside information, demanding absolute loyalty, creating alternative facts and realities, shunning and belittling critics and ex-believers, and cultivating an us versus them mindset. Every one of those tactics appears in the deification case studies we just walked through tonight. Then we have Robert J. Lifton, a psychiatrist at Columbia University, one of the most important scholars of totalitarianism and thought reform alive today. Author of Thought Reform and Psychology of Totalism, endorsed Hassan's analysis directly. Lifton wrote, quote, "There is a growing recognition of an important cult-like element in Donald Trump's many-sided destructiveness," end quote. Lifton later published his own book, Losing Reality, on cults, cultism, and the mindset of political and religious zealotry, which examines how cult dynamics operate in political movements. Then you have Philip Zimbardo, the Stanford psychologist, famous for the Stanford prison experiment that we've all heard. If you haven't heard of that, you should check it out. And the author of The Lucifer Effect, Understanding How Good People Turn Evil, also endorsed the cult analysis, calling Hassan's work, quote, "a brilliant analysis of a unique modern phenomena," end quote, and pointing to the coercive control techniques at work. Then you have Bandy X. Lee, a Yale psychiatrist who edited The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump, 2017, a collection of essays by 27 mental health professionals, organized a public warning about the psychological dynamics of the movement. The book argued that mental health professionals had a duty to warn about the dangers they observed. What's critical here is that these aren't partisan commentaries. All right. They're not partisan commentators. These are credentialed professionals in psychology, psychiatry, and cult recovery who are applying the same analytical frameworks they used on Jim Jones, David Koresh, Osho, and other cult leaders. They're not saying, I don't like this politician. They're saying this matches the diagnostic criteria we've been using for decades. And that brings us back to the image on the screen. As you can see, that's almost like a silhouette in a sense in the background here. I'd almost prefer to just show you this one, okay? Now, when we see AI-generated images showing a political figure with divine light behind his head, healing hands on a sick person, adoring crowds gazing upward, military and national symbols of power surrounding him, and when his supporters create these images organically, share them without irony, and defend them against criticism, what are we watching, ladies and gentlemen? We're watching the recipe. The same recipe that made Gilgamesh a god, that made Caesar a god, that made pharaohs gods, that made Jesus a god in Christian theology. The question isn't whether the recipe is being used. You can see it with your own eyes. The question is whether you can recognize it. That's the question. Okay? So, we've covered 5,000 years tonight, 12 cultures, dozens of figures. The recipe never changes. The ingredients are always the same. Extraordinary origins, superhuman deeds, divine imagery, institutional backing, post-mortem cults, visual propaganda. The only thing that changes is the technology. Clay tablets become coins. Coins become mosaics. Mosaics become paintings. Paintings become photographs. Photographs become AI images created by the followers. But the human impulse underneath it all, the need to find a God in a human being, to elevate someone above the rest of us and give them our worship, that impulse is as old as civilization itself. Eric Hoffer wrote, quote, "The quality of ideas seems to matter less than their role as promises and symbols of the selfless merger of an individual with a holy cause," end quote. That's it. That's the whole thing. The content changes, the structure doesn't. And the first step to freedom from it is recognizing the recipe when you see it. So just to show you a few of the scholarly references I used in case you want to pause this later, maybe you feel like digging up these books. Not every one of the sources is on this image here, but there you have it. There's about a bunch of stuff there. Now I've spent an hour and 20 minutes practically giving this long spiel, but I figure because I like to study religions. I love to study cults. I love to study history, mythology, science, and how the mind, why do we believe in things? And I could not help myself. You guys know I'm not a political channel. I do have my own personal thoughts. I try not to bring that. But when you have someone so blatantly post something that makes themselves look like God, like I joke around, you know, I'm being funny when I post something that makes me convert or makes me look like I'm Jesus. In fact, the thumbnail in this image has me winking like, guys, you know, it's easy. I'm joking. But if he would have just went, I was joking, we'd still probably go, well, all the other evidence does point towards the behaviors. You have a cult following. You are behaving in orders of magnitude above normal average human beings. And we see the bite model in effect in the real world. You know, that could still be there. But the news with what he just did, it just made me go, my gosh. I mean, I had to explore it. So I spent the last 12 to 14 hours collecting some of the information, trying to put it together and create a little PowerPoint for you so that I could come on and just show you some of the interesting observations that I noticed. For me, the Naram Sin one is interesting because this king breaks the tradition of post-mortem deification, and he decides he's going to be a god in his life. Now, maybe people around him were so honoring him by his activities that he self-deified and just accepted it. But because he had a failure during his reign where they got destroyed, that opened up the door for extreme criticism. So when a leader says, I'm going to bring all peace and I'm going to keep us all, we're going to drop all the prices and I'm going to do all these things and give you all these promises, and then it ends up being the opposite or something catastrophic occurs, you're preparing yourself for damnatio memoriae, what the senators did to the bad emperors in Rome, what happened to Stalin, you're going to have the worst memory in history under that particular social structure as a representative of that nation and as a leader of that people. I don't know what to do. This is above my pay grade. I don't know what to do about such a system. All I know how to do is this nobody, regular dad and husband and father of 3 kids, and just learning and reading scholarship online, is to try my best to just give other people the tools to see it so that they can be careful and cautious and hopefully self-reflective, and they don't fall prey to Jim Jones types, to religious and political cults that cause them to be so blind. And I think it's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate. So I was forced to have to do this. Had to. All right. Thank you for listening to me ramble on. If this was useful, even in the slightest, like the video, comment down below if you really enjoyed it. If there's anything you learned that might have been interesting to observe. One more thing, and I remember this, I was going to bring this up. I did a video called The Deadly Myth That Women Should Be Controlled. Absolutely must watch. I saw a Taliban being interviewed by another Muslim apologist on Twitter. And in it, they were talking about women's education and how women they shouldn't get educated in Afghanistan. And this was a Muslim either in Europe or in America. I don't know where Daniel Hakikachu lives, but sentiments were more extreme than the Taliban he was interviewing in Afghanistan. And I thought to myself, my goodness, this guy's in a Western country thinking this way. And the guy in Afghanistan said, hey, you're more extreme than I am. And he says that, ultimately that women should not, and all these horrific things. There's a myth about women. One thing I noticed in this short research is you don't find women in this list, right? That's not to say there may not have been an example or two. There may be more than that, but you will find that predominantly it is this father figure, male type figure who fits that cult godlike status better. And the few times you do get people who really do slander the names of women, like Jezebel or others, I really wish I knew what the real history about that was. What was Jezebel really like, if she was historical? And if she was this Phoenician queen, what if she was a wonderful person? And just because she worshiped a different god than them, they made her out to be this horrific thing and have a disgusting death written in the propaganda we call the Hebrew Bible. That literally is being used as a weapon today in some evangelical circles that call women who tell their husbands, hey, give me more time. Hey, stop doing these things or whatever. You need to control your woman. She has the spirit of Jezebel. So I just thought none of these cult leaders are women. It makes sense. And you kind of ask yourself, maybe if we stop trying to run this shit the way we do, maybe there'd be less wars. Maybe there'd be a little more peace. I don't know. I mean, I don't have that all figured out, but I could tell you from my personal experience that I think I know things. I think I'm smart. But my wife, she knows things, and she has an intuition as a mother, as a wife, as a woman that I don't. She has something that I don't. And I tell you, if it weren't for her, I was interviewed recently by Durante Lamar. And he was like, where's Ryan, the queen of MythVision and all this? I said, she's everything in this. If it weren't for her, I would not be sitting my ass right here talking to all of you. Like, I would not even have this option. Like, say goodbye to MythVision if it weren't for the queen. She is that significant. So we've got some things to work on, fam. You know what I'm saying? Humanity needs help. Tora, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you for showing up. Really appreciate the love. What's going on, my brother? Great to see you dropping that science and bringing light to the people. Happy to see you found your swagger. Keep up the great works. Love and respect. Always salute, fam. Appreciate you so much, Tora. Really appreciate that. Yeah. That's a compliment. I've got some swagger now. You know what I'm saying? Got to keep an eye out on my swagger. Pat, thank you. Thank you so much. I just purchased The True Believer on Amazon. They better send me a commission. Selling books over here. Kidding. I'm glad. I hope that some of these works actually become useful and helpful. I actually have Hassan's number. I have Steve Hassan's number. We've spoke on the phone before many years back, and I never got that interview. I need to make that interview happen, especially right now. I mean, my goodness, someone's got to do it, right? So he's the one with the bite model, and I think he's spot on. Bakken, love you. Thank you so much for being here. The battle between homogeny, how do you pronounce this? Homogeny and plurality. Plurality, yeah. Homogeny and plurality. Let me just make sure I got this pronounced right. How do you pronounce this? Just to make sure. Homogeny, I think it is, right? Yeah. Homogeny. So, look, I've got so much work to do on figuring out how to properly pronounce things. The conservatives want to enforce national identity, and the left wants multiplicity and civil rights expansion. Yeah, it's a tug of war. It's a tug of war. My whole goal, of course, as you know, and I stay away from politics with this channel, but today I could not do this. I had to do this. Everyone knows this. Everyone. Christian, non-Christian, you name it. Everyone saw this. And I'm sitting here seeing this, and I'm laughing my ass off when he sits there and says, I didn't know. I thought I was a doctor, a Red Cross. Bro, that's like your mom walking in on you, and you got porn on the computer playing, and your pants are halfway up with a bulge. And she's like, what are you doing? And you're like, I'm playing video games, Mom. Like, dude, the screen, the image on the screen says it all. You don't have to lie. You know what I mean? You could just say, look, man, I was just, having fun, whatever. No, the lie made it worse. That's what I think did it. I think it was the lie that made it even more, made me feel like, oh, I'm dropping everything. I got to do this video. I have to. That was what made me, I couldn't help but chuckle. He definitely did it to himself there. So, but yes, I would like to see things cool off. I would like to see things calm down. I would like to see the climate in America change, in the world change. My gosh, we're supposed to be such a beacon of light to the world, and yet, are we? I don't know, man. This is crazy. Mr. Anderson, thank you so much for being here. I get your name right this time. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a minute. A case for godhood is made also by the individual by saying what they have done and what they will do cause to happen in the future. It shows divine knowledge, fate, restricted to gods by the biblical God. Interesting. So people will read the signs and can almost make predictions and either cause them or predict them, and they happen, not necessarily due to the magic of it, right? But simply because they see things others don't. I heard, and I don't know how factual this is, that when Christopher Columbus and others from Europe came to the Americas, the natives did not have a star tracking system as developed as people in Europe did, of course. And we could predict when a lunar eclipse, a solar eclipse would occur. We had that down pretty well when we came to the Americas. And they would fool the natives by predicting the lunar eclipse to trade and to find ways to, of course, get over on them. They thought that they were divine. I don't know how factual that is. Have you heard about that? If you're watching this video, I've heard that, and it would make sense that you would do that. For example, I think of the cargo cults. When during the war, a lot of equipment is brought, food is brought. I mean, they're literally parachuting tanks into the ocean right there off the shore, going in. And the natives are seeing this, thinking the gods are producing these things. And they developed entire religious systems around these things. It's a fascinating research. And it's like almost contemporaneous. Like, it's very, very close to us in history to see how humans have invented and created these superstitious kind of beliefs about it, but I do think it goes way, way back. You get this like even in ancient Mesopotamian stuff. There's prophecy there, predictive capabilities of people there. So you have self-fulfillment prophecy where you can say something's going to happen, but you make sure it happens. You have Vaticanum ex eventu, someone who's writing propaganda after the fact, assuming the prophecy's already happened. And then you have those who just make a guess. Like, I can make a prediction about something, and if it happens, then I am right. I'm a prophet. We see failed prophets too in the Bible, with Ezekiel making prophecies about Tyre. I think that's a failed prophecy because you get three chapters later. So chapter 26 of Ezekiel, it's a failed prophecy where the king of Babylon, I believe, is supposed to come and crush Tyre, and they're supposed to like remove it where there's nothing nothing will habit the region. And of course, that's not true. And then 3 chapters later in Egypt, he does a prophecy. And God says, because, what happened didn't happen with Tyre, I'm giving you Egypt. And that didn't happen either. So it failed and then it failed. Go read it. Chapter 26 and chapter 29. Pull out a commentary. You'll be pretty impressed, I think, by it. Mr. Anderson, I think your intuitions are absolutely right. And so if someone can guess properly in the setting of authority, couched within a system where prophets might exist, or couched within a system where they're supposed to be respected and honored, if they make a predictive prophecy, whether it's a negative one and it comes true or a positive one and it comes true, you're setting yourself up right for a system where people are going to continue to repeat that cycle and believe and reinforce that system. I question the whole system here, Anyways, thank you for that super chat. Let me make sure I got everybody here. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I 100% think so too. I think so too. I don't want to leave anybody. Facts. God. It's wild. And you know what the wildest part to me is how the people who were diehard apologists for him are turning on him. That's what really gets me right now. Seeing, we're sitting here going, yeah, you see it now. Let's get the fire extinguisher out before it's too late here. Bakken, again, thank you for the super chat. Do you want to help me write my pseudo gospel, Magistan, the Third Republic? It's a sort of satiricon, LOL. I've already worked on a birth narrative. Oh my gosh. Dude, send me what you got, man. I'm busy as hell. I'm trying to write a book myself right now, but also keep crafting these videos and continuing to pump out content because the beast demands it. No, but seriously, if I don't do a live stream every day and I don't do a recording every day, I wish I wish things were differently than they are. I have to grind in order to provide for my family. That's why you see me cooking, doing lots of work, keeping it real with y'all. If it isn't for me hustling and doing this a lot, then I would not be able to supply the food and the income to make sure that we can live where we live. And, my time, Bakken, is so like condensed. If you send me on Messenger what you have, obviously bathroom breaks, if I decide I'm going to soak in the bathtub or go get in the pool or something like that, I could sit there and read. Those are usually the times I have. During the work days, I'm crafting scripts. I'm coming up with ideas. I'm editing. I am doing live streams. It's like a 12-hour day every day, including Sundays, Saturdays, everything. Hopefully my schedule can start freeing up where I can have a little bit more me time, but I would be happy to see what you come up with. That's a funny super chat. Garland, good to see you here. Are you talking about Wes Huff? Not today, Maria. Not today. But I have some stuff coming for Wes Huff. I'm not going to stop, y'all. I mean, look, when you're putting the person on, I can't help that he has the opportunity to be on platforms that are putting him in front of tens of millions, and I mean tens of millions of people are watching this. We're talking 20, 30, 40, who knows how many millions of people are watching across all the platforms. When you see that kind of propaganda getting peddled with no pushback and no criticism, you're left with one thing to do, and that is respond using the voice and the power you have to do so. That's all you can do. So I'm going to use my platform the best I can in hopes that some people who are going to be looking for what Westhoff is saying and go, is he right? They can check and see if he's wrong. So I've got a lot more coming because he talks a lot of stuff. There's a lot more material. By the way, you know, thank you for the super chat. I'm about to get to you in just a second here, my friend. The Jeremiah Johnson interview he did on Sean Ryan's that has millions of views already. Bro, this freaking Shroud of Turin, then he goes into other stuff. Like, I've got to dissect all of it. Today I did my first, right before the stream, I recorded. Takes me a while, about an hour and a half, to narrate and go through and try to get the template going for that video. The second part's going to get into a lot of the manuscript stuff. The third part, I'm doing a 3-part respond just to Jeremiah Johnson's stream with Sean Ryan. The third part's about resurrection and getting into this. Ooh, that guy knows how to work a room. He knows how to sell a product, okay? And I am going to, as politely and as factually as I can, go right to the BS, hoping that people will pay attention. All right, I don't want to butcher your name, so I'm going to try. Colette Plays, forgive me if I butchered it. I tried. Thank you. Once the system is in place, it runs an autopilot and is self-justifying. Egypt. Sounds like our system too. Damn. DC is sacred space. Economy equals unquestioned. Sorry for politics. Wake up, people. Listen, I kind of shot myself in the foot for this one. You're 1,000,000% right. I told myself, honestly, excuse my French, fuck it. In this episode, I just said, look, this isn't a thing I do on a regular, but I'm like, look, I have to. I mean, the guy's literally, this is religious too. It's not just political, but this guy is like sharing a thing that makes him God, right? 1,000,000%. And in fact, I don't know if you were around in The Good Kings, Karakuni, who's an absolutely amazing human being. Me and Ryan went and visited her in California, and we got to go and stay at her house and hang out with her and other Egyptologists she had around. What an awesome, like, down-to-earth human being she is. Welcoming us into her house. We recorded courses with her. We already have one course out, by the way, on MVP-courses with her. And she goes into Genesis creation in Egypt. We're planning on editing and getting out resurrection theology in ancient Egypt, which is far older than Christian theology. But in this book, she actually discusses that very issue. It's even got like colored picture. It's very, very nice. Here's another one. Another very pretty pieces of art. But she covers how what's going on right now in our political climate is the identical system and like repetitious stuff we find in ancient Egypt. And she says, like, in way better than I can, great depth. So thank you for the observation and the super chat. You're 100% right. And not only that, if you just look at like some of DC's iconography, like if you go look at the symbolism, right? You have an obelisk, right, in DC. You talk about Egypt here. You have an obelisk right there. You have a lot of Greco-Roman symbology. You have, obviously, Freemasons helped construct this stuff, which I think is interesting. I'm not trying to knock the fact that we want to draw from different symbology that comes from the ancient world and whatnot. But when you're operating like a cult and it's not healthy, it's harmful, that's the thing I'm trying to help people see and not fall prey to. Or if you're already been in that, maybe you're starting to wake up. Maybe you're starting to go, maybe I should question this whole thing. Maybe I should question this whole thing. Maybe I shouldn't go down that path. I need to do more research and look into this a little more, and then question what you've been doing, devoting your life to a leader who is the best at everything on the damn planet. When someone tells you they're the best at everything and they know they have it all, like, that certainty is cult leader language. It really is. Stefan, thank you so much for that super chat. You are a lion with a voice of lamb. Lambert is my last name. Well done. How much help you need for your project? You are the one that will find the truth. help you need with your project? What project? I'm always doing projects. Stefan, feel free to email me. I'll tell you this. I do create documentaries. Like if people want to fund a project, it helps me put together and craft and script and devote, because I pay editors to edit my documentaries as well. So that costs money. But if you have there's an interest project that people are interested in, they say, hey, I'd like to see this visually nailed in a really good, video for these ideas that I find, I am always open to project funding like that, because I could not afford it myself to make those things happen. That is something I never really publicized, but there are a few Patreon members who've privately messaged me, and I said, hey, yes, I would be more than happy to do a funded project and create a video that helps articulate this point. And so if that's something you're talking about, feel free to reach out to me, and I'd be more than happy to consider what project. I obviously want to see what the project would be, but I'm working on several things myself and trying to edit things. But if you want me to, I'm more than happy to focus on a particular one. And all the funding, we don't have an institution backing us. I don't even have sponsors right now. Like I used to have sponsors last year when things were really doing a lot better. Things slowed down a lot. I have no sponsors. There's no sponsors. So, it's almost like you're sponsoring a video and credit would be to the person who helped sponsor it. That's how I look at it. Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Super duper. I thought I saw someone. Alien the Wizard says, damn, only super chat, huh? I always prioritize super chats. That doesn't mean I won't see something once we run out. But if you do super chat, you cut the line, and it helps us keep things going here. I'm looking up. I don't see anything by you, Alien. Fine, ignore me. I'm trying not to. Read it before you quote me. Funny thing is, the biblical God is like it say on screen in every shape and form is actually Enlil from the Anunnaki story. Almost 100% of things said and did by God is actually Enlil, the son of. Specifically, I don't think it's a 1-to-1 correlation. I do think that the traditions we find of Enlil, Ea, Enki, the sneaky, intelligent deity with Adapa and Adam and Yahweh, I think there is definitely shared Mesopotamian tradition there where these earlier gods and their tropes are being passed along, but I don't really read them as alien stuff. I know that I have friends who do. I don't personally go that route, but either way you slice it. There you go. I didn't ignore you. I just figure I would make sure I address some people. I don't mean to ignore anyone. All right, look, I am going to go get some food, and because even Yahweh repented of destroying mankind when he smelt the barbecue that Noah had cooked. No, seriously, thank you, Robin Webster. Thank you for the positive compliments. I can use them. I'm human too. I don't have the same hubris level. I don't have that thick skin that some people, sorry, my brain went on repeat mode for some weird reason. I'm very much human, and I feel things, and I very much, wear my heart on my sleeve, and it means a lot to see support. Really, really appreciate it. It's not about alien stuff. It's literally the same thing, except it's more literate. Literate. Yeah. I think it's literate like the older stuff's literate, except it's written down much later, of course. I think we would agree on that. Bakken says, love you, brother. Bless you and your family. Bakken, love you too. Thank you. Bless you, my friend. Really appreciate you. Alien, love your work. Love your work, though. Thank you. Deborah says, thank you for this. Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody who showed up. Feel free to share this with a friend. It does help us on the platform. YouTube, here's the recipe for YouTube. When people like what you're doing, they comment, they like, they share. YouTube rewards the videos for that. Now they have a hype option. You can even hype videos that you want to see more people get attention of. There's different ways you can do this to try and help a channel grow. But that's why if you ever watch my live streams, I don't mean to annoy you all with the remembering of like, did you like this video already? Did you subscribe and did you share it? That's not my goal. I'm not trying to irritate you. I'm just trying to remind people, hey, just hit the like button real quick. It does send signals to the algorithm gods. Hey, people want to see this. I will recommend this video to more subscribers from that channel. That's why you could see someone with 300,000 subscribers and they might only have 150 live. The videos depend. Sometimes I'm having 500 live. Sometimes it's 80 live. Sometimes it's 250 live. It depends because the interaction and the interest in the video depends on how much YouTube's going to send it out to my subscribers. I don't know why it does it that way, but that's the way it does it. Juanita, thank you. Just thank you for this video. Thank you. I think we all saw it and laughed and thought, somebody's full of shit. You got to keep it real. Derek is indeed the bread of life containing hash oil and shroomies. He is the medicine we all need. Listen, I said it verbally. I am not a god. Skipping 100 years down the road. Oh, Derek, the deity of MythVision. He is the anointed one. Or what is that famous Life of Brian episode in the movie where he's like, I'm not the Messiah. And the guy goes, only the Messiah would say he's not the Messiah. And then they're all worshiping him and bowing down. I love that. That is, I got to go watch that movie again soon. Billy, well noticed. Derek, thank you, Billy. Alan, great stuff. Ferric, I think they meant Derek because I think D's near the F. I understand. Derek, do you argue for or against creation? Well, I'm not a creationist. I would say we're all inside of existence here. So, I mean, I think that's what they mean by this comment. So, oh, another super duper. Skipping the line, Sarah. Thank you. Of course, he couldn't admit it was a joke and had to take it down. Trump blaspheming would have fractured his Republican base. Facts. Million %. I mean, I think it would have been smarter for him. I don't know. Maybe he has some people in his ear saying, no, pretend that you were really doing something noble there or something. But I would have been like, I was joking. It was a complete joke. What's wrong with people, right? Try to get the blame off of him. No, dude. The fact that he said he was a Red Cross doctor healing people or surrounded by the Red Cross. And then when you look at the image and you think, hold on, like, bro, your hands are glowing. You got angels in the air above you. You cannot tell me he did not see this and go, oh man, this makes me look pretty good. I look like someone special here. I look almost divine. I'm going to share this thing. It makes me look good. He probably jumped to tweeting this and didn't even realize the implications for his own followers. Like, that sucks. But I'm glad he did it. You know what I mean? So we could all see and have a reason for me to do a video about cults and how humans become gods and all of that. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. Thank you, Billy. Solera, good to see you too. Good to see you, Solera. Oh, it is hauntingly hilarious. Absolutely. This one is to me. But you know what's not hilarious though? On a serious note, and why I felt like doing this video too is like, when I thought about what he did, immediately I remember doing a documentary I did. I called it Gardeners of the Gods, but it's actually like a deep Mesopotamian trail that takes you to this older tablet that is that shows like an older, what looks like an Adam and Eve sill. George Smith said this back in the 1850s, but modern scholars say it looks like a common fertility banquet scene. And this took me way back in, and I saw Naram Sin and his hubris. And when I thought about Naram Sin's hubris, and I thought about where he was when he declared himself of God, he was in the very lands that wars happen right now today. It's the same shit happening, right? Same cycle. It's obviously in Iraq a little further west, but in that same territory of the world, we had a God man declare himself a God man as a king, as a leader of a nation, and he had failure, and the people suffered for that. On all ends, people suffer for this, right? And I think about what's going on right now, and I'm like, when are we going to somehow get to a place where we're not doing this anymore? We need to figure. I don't know what the hell we're going to do. I don't know what humans, what we need to do as humans. But I thought about that, and I was just like, damn. The very same region of the world where the first Mesopotamian king self-deifies himself, and of course ends up getting mocked for thousands of years to come through the poetry of them condemning him because he claimed to be a god and did some destructive things to the gods. That was like, so it's sad, but it's funny how silly his defense was on TV. But it's sad to know what's still going on in humanity, and will we get out of this? Will we grow out of this? Can we get out of this? Can we please, for once, like, try to break free of the shackles of the system that we've been prisoned to for so long? I think we should try new things. We need new things. We need to do stuff differently. It's not working. When you see wars happening all the freaking time, I feel like something's got to give. DJ Wilkins in the house. For those who don't know, DJ shared his testimony on MythVision last month. Last month? This month? How late are we into this month? Let me look on. Hold on. Calendar here. DJ, you shared your testimony. Yeah, last month. End of last month on the 30th. Go check out his interview. Based on the books, believe we'll be getting a de-deification in Dune Part 3. Ooh, that's interesting. A damnatio memori, the same thing they did to the emperors like Caligula. That'll be really cool. I can't wait to see that. Oh, man. It's sad. It is sad. It is sad. Bakken, thank you so much for that super chat. Big reveal. I'm going to include the Butler ear event. I'm going to have Trump be born again, virgin, when it gets up. Ear diapers will be a sign of chastity. Dude, I won't be shocked if he's already deified in like a polytheistic system somewhere in the world right now, like where they have mini gods. He's probably already a god to some. And we see it through the AI image produced by followers of his in America that he's seen in godly proportions. It is kind of funny psychologically how the worldview of Abrahamic faith being one God, right? They're supposed to believe in one God. Now they sneak in the Trinity, in my opinion, but it's a strange 3-in-1 kind of thing I think that they have. Nonetheless, that's not what I'm trying to dispute here. I'm trying to point out that how you have one God and then yet you have saints, right? That get like close, like very important saintly figures. They're like, they become deified. They're super significant. Or look at what's going on with Donald Trump, right? How they're deifying him. The fact that they would make something like that and see him through the symbology of Jesus Christ that way is odd. And then what was really the icing on the cake for me, any Catholics out there, don't be mad at me, but I'm just going to keep it real. You have a pope who I think is also standing on business in terms of being against the war, which proud of him for that. And standing up against to a complete dictator, proud of him for that. But I think what is significant about this is that this guy is supposed to be the vicar. He's supposed to be Christ on earth. And he's, even though supposed to be humble in this office, is seen in this this deified status, so to speak. He is definitely held in this hierarchical system that we still have perpetrating, that keeps going on. And I think to myself, he's kind of Jesus on earth in some situations. So I find that interesting. Kind of like maybe North Korea has about the dead emperor who's still alive and they worship him today, but his sons are like him in the flesh or something. Like, it makes me think like all this stuff's strange. Humans are just very, very strange creatures, you know. Real Pumpkin J, thank you for the member for 2 months. Sounds like the cult surrounding Prince Philip. I don't know about this cult. What? I have no clue about this. I don't know, Real Pumpkin. I'm gonna have to look into this Prince Philip stuff. Thank you so much for that, being a member here. Everybody, I'm gonna go get some dinner now. I really appreciate you tuning in. I hope this video is good. And you know, I don't know. I just hope more people wake up and at least see it and back off. Get out of it. Get out of it while you can. I love y'all. I'm gonna get out of here. Until next time, never forget, we are MythVision.
Son, do you want to know what the truth is? After this, there's no turning back. You take the blue pill and you wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill and you stay in Wonderland, and I show you just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.